Hello and welcome to the Bookyard. I'm Sam.
And I'm Kai.
Okay, everyone, hold on to your butts.
Hold 'em good.
Today we're going to deep dive into the Folk of the Air series by Holly Black. But first, how was your week?
It was pretty good. Let me tell you what happened. I think for the first time in history, I ran out of shampoo before conditioner.
Oh my gosh. Wait, is that new for you? Because I do that a lot.
What the? I thought the thing was people always ran out of conditioner before shampoo.
You forget how often I shampoo my hair.
Do you not condition it?
I shampoo my hair at the same frequency that I condition my hair.
I don't know. I think it's a you problem. Normally people run out of conditioner first, but I double shampoo.
I like it.
Yeah, so that was what happened this week. Pretty crazy. What about you? How was your week?
Well, I have been using my new Kindle a lot.
Whoop whoop.
Em got me a Kindle for Christmas.
How sweet. You're a Kindle girly.
Kindle girly. I used to be a Kindle girly, and then I was a teenager, I guess, but my mom knelt on it. Like it was on my bed because I was obviously like Kindle in my bed, like I'm gonna read all night, girl.
Yeah, obvi.
My mom came in and she was like, "Hey, just wanted to tell you good night," and like knelt down, and I just heard like a, and I was like, "No, my Kindle, I like sobbed, and it was like, you know, when someone's like pet dies and then they're like traumatized and they never want one again.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I guess that was how my Kindle experience went, because up until now I have been physical book girl. So I have a new one and I've been eating it up. It's been really fun. I like the backlight on it so I can read at night and I don't get like terrible headaches because I just pretend it's not getting darker.
I love that. Do you have like the little night mode set so it changes to yellow?
No, I should do that.
Yeah, I'll show
I
you
don't know how to
that
work
later.
it yet.
That's okay.
I've been using it for like 3 days, but I have read 3 books, so woohoo! Okay, let's get back to it. The Folk of the Air series by Holly Black. I think most people know it from the first book. I think they kind of just rely on The Cruel Prince to sum it up. I've heard a lot of people talking about the Cruel Prince series, so that's what we're talking about. The Cruel Prince is a fantasy book. It is more YA than what we've talked about before here on this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
It involves both fairies and humans. The Fae in this book are no ACOTAR Fae.
No.
They are cruel and tricky, and they love to just hurt people.
And they have like special food that humans have to put salt on to be able to eat it.
No. Salt just negates their magic. So like it's like an old like fairy tale, like wives' tale or whatever.
Shut up right now.
That's why in this book Jude like puts salt on their food, because it means they can't, like, you know, it's just like screwing with them, right?
Oh my gosh. I don't know if I mean, obviously it's episode 7,
It's
so you
been a
guys
bit.
know I'm a dumbass.
No, you're not. This was a while ago though that you read this one, so it's not like fresh in your brain.
You're so sweet. I know. I thought that from the second I read it. So, but thanks for the.
Also, so sorry about that like fun throat clearing moment. I'm still not feeling great from the last time we recorded. You know when the like male main character growls? That was me today.
Have you ever seen those videos on TikTok where it's like a girl reading a like smut book and she turns to her husband and says, "Will you growl?" And he's like, she's like, "Ew, no."
Ew, no, I hate that. Yes, I have seen those.
That's what
me.
that reminded me of.
That's me. It's fine.
I love it.
Okay, let me read you the blurb from Holly Black's website. Jude was 7 years old when her parents were murdered, and she and her 2 sisters were stolen away to live in the treacherous high court of Fairy. 10 years later, Jude wants nothing more than to belong there, despite her mortality. But many of the Fae despise humans, especially Prince Cardan, the youngest and wickedest son of the High King. To win a place at the court, she must defy him and face the consequences. In doing so, she becomes embroiled in palace intrigues and deceptions, discovering her own capacity for bloodshed. But as civil war threatens to drown the courts of Fairy in violence, Jude will need to risk her life in a dangerous alliance to save her sisters and Fairy itself.
Ooh.
Yeah.
They definitely set it up for Prince Carden being like wicked. You're obviously like gonna be into that. You know what I mean?
For sure.
So first of all, let's talk about some of the tropes, or I'm probably gonna say the rest of the episode, tropes. So we obviously have enemies to lovers. Classic YA fantasy with a tinge of romance, enemies to lovers, you know.
Yes.
But also kind of confusing lovers.
Yeah.
It was kind of weird.
Like sexy haters. I don't
Oh
not
my
necessarily
gosh.
like full love
No.
here in this book, at least.
But I was fine with
in the
it,
trilogy,
honestly.
it was fine. Yeah.
Because I feel like in YA, a lot of times it's insta love, and you know how much I hate that.
Yeah, you really do hate insta love.
I
as
hate
of this
insta love.
morning.
Yeah, I'm on that train right now. So I was fine with it being kind of confusing. But
Yeah.
we also have bad guy becomes the good guy,
Yes.
which I like.
I like that too. We also have another one of those things. We mentioned it earlier. I can't remember which episode we talked about it in. We also have like very interesting sister dynamics here.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Jude a little bit as a main character.
Okay.
For this episode specifically, we kind of jumped into Reddit.
I love Reddit.
Honestly, it's been super helpful because when we read a book, a lot of times we become kind of like an echo chamber, I think, because we have some of the
Totally.
same thoughts.
Yeah.
And we'll be like on a hate train, and then I'll be like, you know what? Let's see what other people say about it. And honestly, as we like research for these episodes, the things that people say are really insightful, I think.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to read a few and we'll rotate here.
Yeah.
Things about what people said about Jude as a main character. People either really love her or really hate her.
For sure.
First of all, Melanie said, "One of the most beautiful things about this book is that none of these characters are perfect. All of them do bad things, and none of them are ever excused of their crimes, but they learn to deal with them and the other ramifications that come from their actions. I mean, none of us are perfect people, and we all make bad choices at times, but this book accepts that and reflects that, but also highlights the importance of growing and becoming a stronger person, and picking what battles you choose to fight. It's a truly beautiful message, and I really appreciated having a full cast of non-perfect characters that do non-perfect things."
Wow, Melanie. Okay, queen.
Yeah, she's way more accepting than I was at the beginning of this, I think.
For sure. But Nick Reeds says, not a day goes by without thinking how freaking annoying Jude was in this book.
That was kind of our first impression, I think.
I'm with Nick Reeds.
I think I kind of like evolved past it afterwards, but I definitely was there for a minute where I was like, what the hell, Jude?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Melissa, heart dog / wolf lover, Heart Martin, said. Sorry, she just had like a cool comment and I was like, we're going with it, but we're going to give her full credit there.
As she deserves, Melissa, heart dog, wolf lover, Heart Martin.
It's not even the heart like emoji, it's fully spelled out. Heart Martin. Heart dog / wolf lover. Heart Martin.
Okay, Melissa, I'm sorry. I'm ready for your comment.
She says, "I love Jude. She's my new bad to the bone girl. She gets dragged away with her 2 sisters to Fairy by the man that killed her parents, lives in Fairy most of her life, is training to fight and can handle a sword very well. She wants to be a knight, but she turns into so many other things."
Ooh, I do actually like that ending of how she turns into so many other things.
That's true.
And for my clarification, is this comments from people on the whole series or just the first book?
All of them, actually.
Okay, awesome. Sorry, I just needed that clarification for my own brain.
Mm-hmm.
One more comment though about Jude. This is from Kai Spellmeyer, which
it's you, but with
it's
Spellmeyer.
me, but more witchy.
Witchy Kai.
I love it. But Kai Spellmeyer says, "I could not get a feeling for her, Jude, as in her goals, her motivations were clearly spelt out, but her voice did not match her actions. On one hand, Jude is a ruthless human with a backbone like a lion, and on the other hand, she is a typical young adult main character that could be interchanged with several MCs from other novels. I could not make these two aspects fit into one person. I hope she grows into her skin and goes through strong character development in the sequels."
And this one, I think, was just from The Cruel Prince. The other ones, I think, were from the whole series. I think this person had stated, like, before, like, I've only read the first one.
I'm with Kai Spellmeyer on this one.
Yeah, I definitely thought there were times when that was totally true. So Jude is obviously our main character in this book.
Mhm.
Let's just, like, jump in there.
Yeah.
She has a twin. Her twin's name is Taryn.
Hate her.
Kai hates Taryn. I hate Taryn too.
Yeah, don't just throw me. You hate her too.
Yeah, I'm not a Taryn fan. So you get Jude and Taryn, who are the twins, and then their older sister's name is Vivi. She is half fae, like their mom was a human, and Jude and Taryn are just human.
Mm-hmm.
Vivi is half fae. Their adoptive father, who's also the man who murdered their like human parents, Maddox.
Daddy issues for real.
Yeah. But then you get Prince Carden.
Mm-hmm.
He has some friends, Valerian, Nicasia, Locke. They're in the series quite a bit. And then you get like random like other ones. Like there's a king, there's Prince Carden's other siblings.
They also do have a younger brother who is their adoptive father and his wife's son, Oak.
Yes. And Oak's a very cute little fairy.
He's cute. He's quite a bit younger than the rest of them. So you get to see him in his like young adolescence.
Yes. And there actually is, I think, another series spun off from this series, and it focuses on Oak. I don't know if that's a full trilogy, but we'll have to read that at some point.
We will, yeah. So kind of fun. But that's just the general idea of all of the characters. So let me tell you a little bit about my thoughts about Jude.
Yes.
So the thing is, Sam talked about this in the beginning about loving reading Reddit and reading into other people's feelings. I struggle with this, and Sam knows this. I have to have my thoughts gathered on a book, rate it, be done with it, and try not to go look at the reviews because I'm so easily swayed
Absolutely.
about what I think. I'm terrible. I'll read a 5-star book, be like, that was absolutely amazing, life-changing.
You'll also read one negative review and be like, I hated it.
No, that's where I was going. Is I'll read like my favorite book of all time. I'll go look at the comments or like the reviews on Goodreads, and I see 5 in a row that are 2 stars saying this was terrible, and I'm immediately embarrassed that I gave it a 5, and I'm like, why did I rate it so high? This is terrible. So
you absolutely do this.
My thoughts of Jude are kind of all over the place. I had a pretty strong, I hated her. I didn't understand where her loyalty stood. I feel like she was all over the place, very selfish, but also confused about her identity. I was all over the place. And then me and Sam kind of started talking about her more, and I grew to understand her better, and I think I like her a little bit more.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of all over the place on my personal feelings about her.
That makes sense.
I don't know. What do you think about her?
I think I have a hard time balancing this because I do definitely, when I read, get like gut reactions to characters. And Jude is definitely one of those people that I had a gut reaction to. Jude is absolutely way more cruel than most like female main characters.
For sure.
That you read, especially in YA. She definitely is like, honestly, almost like bloodthirsty. She's really willing to do like whatever it takes. But then she's also like in a world where everyone else does that and it seems to be okay. But for some reason, I was having a gut reaction against her specifically, which I found really hard to deal with because everyone else in this like fairy world is genuinely like just not a good person. Like they're abusive, they're awful, they like kill people. She lives with her parents' murderers and he's her dad, right?
Yeah, very confusing dynamics.
And then Jude like is bitchy once and I'm like, I don't like her, you know?
Yeah.
So I definitely feel like my feelings towards her were definitely gut reaction based at the beginning. But I did really appreciate the growth that she went throughout the book.
Mm-hmm.
And this is going to be way too deep for a YA thing, but I definitely feel like we're really bad at giving grace to women in literature. I think we're bad at giving grace to women in general, but we read a lot about like really morally gray men who we just like don't have problems with most of the time. But when we come across like a legitimate morally gray woman, I think we have the instinct to judge her and think that she's like less than the rest of them. So I want to be on Jude's team for that reason, you know?
Yeah, that's pretty deep. I think that I'll stay on the I don't really love Jude train if you want to go the deep high road morals.
I'll be Jude's champion here for a minute.
That's fine. I like that.
Did you think she grew a little bit in the book, or what did you think about her like journey throughout the trilogy here?
I thought that throughout the trilogy, I don't know if she grew a ton, but I feel like she did grow a little. We see throughout that, because, I mean, without going into too much detail, obviously a couple spoilers here, she has to start killing people, and then she starts working in like underground, and then she gets married, and then she is banished. Like, she goes through all these different experiences in such a short time, and I feel like through most of it I was kind of like, you're still kind of the same person. But every once in a while she did have an experience where I thought, wow, you have really grown. For example, in the series, one of her friends betrays her, like full on betrays her. She's gonna die. And they're being held hostage. And she goes back and is like, I am going to save them.
Yeah. I think she kind of is like, why did you betray me? And there was like a legitimate reason for it.
Yeah.
But she definitely like went back and was like, okay, I'm gonna save this person.
Even though from the perspective of her, he did not deserve it at all.
Right, absolutely. And it really wasn't within her character to do that up until this point.
So I feel like, although I don't know that she was night and day, there were certain experiences throughout the trilogy where I thought, okay, maybe she is growing a little bit. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I do think that she finally comes to terms with some of her harder character flaws, specifically after book 2. So, like you mentioned a little bit of a spoiler, end of book 2, she's basically banished from Fairy, right? She ends up having to go back to the human world. This is really hard for her because she's kind of had this big love arc with Cardan at this point, and she's banished from Fairy. I think it really changed her as a person because by the end of the 3rd book, I think she made considerably different decisions than she would have in the 1st book. I think she was also okay with loving Cardan by the end. I think in the first 2, they really struggled with their like hate love thing. But she's way less cruel than she was before. Honestly, the point where I was like, okay, this girl is finally starting to show some sort of growth was at this specific turning point in the 3rd book.
The end of the series.
The end of the series, right?
Yeah.
Where obviously spoilers here because we're just deep diving into this trilogy, so we want to actually be able to talk about it. Cardan is turned into this like serpent, right?
Massive serpent, yeah.
Through like a big chunk of the 3rd book, honestly. Yeah. And she goes through like these many options, and there are so many people who kind of think they know Jude at this point, and so many of them are like, okay, well, if you put this magical, like basically like collar and leash on the serpent, like he'll be able to do your will, and then you'll be the queen and you'll be in charge, and like all of these awesome things that like cruel and ambitious Jude really like, it seems like that's what she would want, right?
For sure. Well, and in the beginning of the series, that's all she wants. She wants power. She wants to be in like the King's Guard. She wants that respect that Barry really hasn't given her.
Right. This respect, and also like deeper, I think it's an acceptance, but she wants them to acknowledge that she's as good as they are.
For sure.
Which is a hard character flaw to like deal with throughout the book. But at this last point, right, she makes this final decision, and it's not what you would have expected from her at all. Or at least I was like, yeah, you know what? This is who she is at the core. And she hasn't been able to like show it before. So I definitely thought that Cardan brought that out in her, which I thought was interesting because at the beginning you wouldn't think that they'd bring out anything good in each other.
Yeah.
Toward the end, they definitely brought out some good, caring aspects of one another.
Yeah. One flaw I felt like, especially with their love story, is we really didn't get to see a finale or more of a connection, at least in my opinion. I feel like at the end, he is turned back into himself, and they're just kind of like, yeah, we're baddies, we're together. And I'm like, what?
Right. Well, and I do think that part of that is the way that it's written and set up. So Holly Black has, because this is basically the universe that she's working in right now, there's so much outside of the books that you can find. So there's this point where Cardan is like writing letters to Jude and like kind of expressing some of these things that he really never says in the actual book, but I found them online.
Ooh.
I didn't like bring them or anything today, but the letters themselves, I was like, wow, okay, would it have really hurt you to like include this at the end of the book?
Yeah, well, and I mean, you spend 3 books with these characters, and although they both are low-key evil, you kind of are rooting for them to be together. They
Yes.
kind of fit each other and they fit each other's evil and they just get one another. That I would have loved to see more of that. This is my love letter to you. This is what I feel about you in the series.
Yeah, I definitely think it could have made like just a little bit of room to have some kind of like emotional resolution.
Yeah. So I don't know. Do you have any other thoughts about their love story?
I did like that she didn't immediately fall in love with him. I think that it was definitely a true enemies to lovers, like much more enemies than lovers, honestly.
Yeah.
I think that she found out how like abusive his circumstances were. I think a lot of times in romance, we get that moment where like there's a bully and the girl like finds out that they're also like being abused and it's just awful. And then she immediately forgives him and it's like, then they can fall in love. And you didn't do that, right? She was like, oh, damn, he's being brutally abused. And then she was like, yeah, but he's still a dick.
Which I appreciate.
I liked it. So I liked that he liked her a lot before she liked him. Like you could tell he was way more into her and she was way more like conflicted.
Which I like. I like that the whole he falls harder.
Yeah. I was a little icked out by how like disgusted they were when they were kissing the first time. Like the first kiss. It was just such a weird transition for me. And I know you had some thoughts about it.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So in the first book, Jude ends up getting Cardan and kind of locking him away and using him as collateral. Like she needs him.
Mm-hmm.
And she's
like holding him hostage,
yes,
right?
Yeah. She's like making some deals with him to get what she needs. And she like goes into where he's staying and as a punishment, she makes him kiss her. Which was so weird.
It was like definitely, for me, that definitely just solidified a YA moment, right? And this book wasn't like cringe YA.
No,
it was
really
really
wasn't.
nice YA. I actually really appreciated it. But that moment, I definitely was like, oh, this is the YA part, right? Like where she was just like, yeah, well, I guess your punishment is you have to kiss me.
Pucker
And he
up,
was like,
buttercup.
no, right? Like,
Yeah.
it was the end of the world.
Which it was so hilarious. One other small thing, I read this book physically. Sam did audio for it, but one part that I just loved in audio was Cardan is writing Jude's name over and over because obviously he's obsessed with her. And in the audio, it just goes, Jude, 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 Jude.
Okay, but you only heard the one part online. It was hilarious because at the beginning it was like Jude, 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 Jude. Like it like ramped up because you had like warned me. You're like, I've seen this like meme going around where it uses the audio of the book and it's just like Jude, 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 Jude.
Let me actually, I have it saved. Let me play the audio.
Yeah, please do. Hold on. Okay, here's the audio.
And it just keeps going.
Yeah, no, it was like a good like 30 seconds of the book there that I was like, okay.
Okay, change my mind. That's my favorite part about their love story.
Is Jude.
It's just that little part.
Jude. I really liked their love story, honestly. I thought it was so good. But the letter specifically, not letter, but when he wrote Jude, Jude, Jude 1,000 times was pretty fun. And I was a little bit like, wow. You're
He
a little
is
unhinged.
obsessed. Yeah.
And this was when they were like full on enemies too.
Yeah, like he was literally making her walk into rivers and crap.
Yeah, like threatening her with like death. Yeah.
How romantic.
How cute. Okay, but no, like genuinely, there's a pretty good like romance aspect of the book. I really like it. It's not like spicy by any means, but it's definitely fun.
Yeah, I would agree.
So 100% recommend. Very cool enemies moment that lasts most of the books, but there's some like lovers mixed in. So it's kind of fun.
I liked it.
Let's talk a little bit about Taryn, because I know we have some strong thoughts about Taryn. I want to hear what you're thinking.
Oh, geez.
Taryn is her sister, by the way. I have said that at the beginning, but just to remind you, Taryn is Jude's twin.
So in the first book, Jude like falls in lust. I won't even say in love with one of Cardan's friends, Locke.
Yes.
And he is also evil because everyone in this book is evil, as we've already talked about. And Taryn knows this. She knows that like something's going on between them. And then she starts acting weird and is kind of like, yeah, I have a secret lover.
Yes.
And Jude is like, who? And Taryn's like, I can't tell you.
Well, and I think even more specifically, Taryn's like, I'm engaged. Like, I'm going to be like, it's going to be announced here soon that I'm engaged to be married to a man, but I can't tell you who it is. So they're like keeping all of these very fun secrets from one another.
Which is so weird because it seems like they have no loyalty to one another. I can't imagine my twin, if I had a twin, being engaged and them telling me, to prove my loyalty, I can't tell you who it is. That's so weird.
Right. And I get the whole like it's fairy, so there's some extenuating circumstances situation, but it definitely feels like it's one of those, like another one of those sister cousin moments that we talked about a little with One Dark Window, where the author sets it up as like, and this is Taryn, my most loyal best friend, sister. We love one another. We've been through all these traumatic things together and we never hide anything from one another. But you never actually see that aspect of their relationship because they're immediately hiding things from one another and like stabbing each other in the back.
For sure. Well, it's so weird. So then obviously Jude is so into Locke. And then it's announced that Taryn is marrying Locke.
After Jude's like kissed him and like
in front of Taryn.
Right. Like, I think they were sitting on like a picnic table at one point, like, or picnic.
Yeah. No, that was the right
blanket?
word. No, I think it was a table.
Yeah. I think they were like at a picnic or something.
Yeah.
And her and Locke were like kissing and Taryn was just there like, la, 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 la.
Straight mackin' with her fiance.
And she didn't say anything because
Nothing.
of this like fairy promise that she made.
Which, like I said, Locke is literally evil. So Locke and Taryn end up getting married. And then Locke is obviously the worst and abusive and terrible. And she just straight up stabs him.
Yeah, Taryn murders her husband.
Which she, I feel like, had all of these qualms about Jude being who she was and kind of like bloodthirsty. And then she just is like, I'm going to stab my husband.
Absolutely.
It was totally a double standard. And she constantly betrays Jude. And then in the third book, she pulls up and says, hey, I need your help, Jude. And Jude helps her. Drops everything to help her.
That's like the main plot point of number 3. Like, that's the only reason she goes back to Fairy is because Taryn's like, I straight up murdered my husband that you told me I shouldn't marry and who was just straight up abusive forever. But like, now I need you to get me out of it.
And it just was so crazy. But not only that, she is pregnant with her husband who she murdered baby. And she keeps it.
Yeah.
Hey, baby, I murdered your daddy. Like, what?
Seriously. No, genuinely. Taryn sucks.
Those were just a couple plot points from Taryn of being like, what the hell?
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And I think this is one of the things that we agreed on like big time in this series was that Taryn genuinely just like really sucked.
She is stinky, stinky.
And throughout the book, she is super judgmental towards Jude.
Mm-hmm.
Jude is obviously more like up in your face. Like people will be like bullying them and like causing physical harm to them. Like Cardan and his friends will be like abusing them basically. And Jude just doesn't stand up for it. And Taryn kind of like consistently urges her to like just let them be awful to them and is just genuinely against any kind of Jude standing up for herself. So when she just murders her husband, it's so out of character.
If I thought that Jude's morals and like what she stood for was confusing, I had another thing coming.
Yeah, Taryn's way worse.
All over the place.
I did want to share with you because as obviously just got this Kindle, that's why I shared the fact here.
Oh yeah.
Holly Black actually wrote like a 60-page little book called The Lost Sisters. It's taking place right after the Cruel Prince, so the first book, and it is from Taryn's point of view.
Nuh-uh.
Yeah,
that
she
sounds
did.
Terrible. Did you finish it?
Yeah, I read all of it.
Good for you, man.
Yesterday. It sucked. Sorry. No, Holly, it was fine. Like it was good. I just hated Taryn. So I didn't love it, you know?
Holly Black, I know you're listening to this.
Holly Black.
Your writing was amazing. Taryn, terrible.
Taryn sucked, which is great. I'm sure that was what you wanted to do. Like, I'm proud of you, but she sucked. Let me just illustrate this really quick.
I'm ready.
So you've heard our critiques of Taryn. This is from her perspective, and it kind of gives you like an idea of who she thinks she is. And it's just so diluted, right?
Oh, geez. Okay.
So she tells this big, like, rotten fairy tale story, and then she is obviously writing this letter to Jude. So this whole thing is like an apology to her about why she didn't tell her about Locke and everything.
Oh, okay.
And she says, after she tells this story, she's like, it's the kind of thing you like. The wicked are slain with swords, no less. Vengeance is had. Boldness is rewarded. But what about all those girls, all those obedient girls who trusted and loved and wed and died? Weren't they bold too? I bet you don't think so. I bet you think they were just stupid. That's your problem in a nutshell. You're judgmental. Everyone makes mistakes. They trust the wrong people. They fall in love. Not you, though. And that's why it's so hard to ask you for forgiveness.
Ew.
Let me go to the next one.
No, there's more?
Yeah.
That is giving
these are just,
the worst.
I've only like marked a few of them, but I just feel like you need to like hear them.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay.
She also writes, again, talking about this like make-believe fairy tale situation that she's like hyper fixated on in her brain.
Okay.
She goes, but then a prince rides up and sees the girl and finds her beautiful. Beautiful not despite her suffering, but because of it. And when I saw that note in my bag, I thought that maybe I was no longer stuck in a fairy tale. Maybe I could be the hero of one. Later, she says, looking at you was like looking into a mirror and hating what I saw.
Oh my gosh.
She also wrote, I should have understood. We'd been raised like the children of the gentry, but we weren't. We were mortals and we had no fixed future in fairy. You were wondering about your place here, just like I was. No shit, Taryn. Like, I'm sorry, what?
You know who Taryn reminds me of?
Who?
Rachel.
Rachel. Yeah, she's absolutely Rachel.
You know who Rachel I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do. Then
That's
there's this
literally
spot.
terrible.
Yes. So the one spot that I really liked in both the Cruel Prince and Taryn's perspective, she writes about this experience that she has with Cardan.
Oh, okay.
And I think he's genuinely the only person who ever tells her the truth about who she is. And I want to just pat him on the back, right?
Thank heavens.
So in The Cruel Prince, you get this spot where Cardan pulls Taryn aside. And you find out later that it's because he's found out that she's the one who's seeing Locke, right? Because in his brain, he hated Jude, not only because she's like human and everything, but because he was under the impression that Jude is the one that was involved with his friend Locke, when in reality, it's been Taryn this whole time. But at this point in the book, he finds out that it wasn't. And in The Cruel Prince, you don't know what he says to Taryn.
Oh my gosh.
Until
yeah.
later.
Okay.
But he, like, they reiterate it in The Lost Sisters. So he comes up to her, and after like confronting her about it, he tells her, "You're awful." He said it as though he was delighted. And the worst part is that you believe otherwise.
Oh my
Which is,
gosh.
in a nutshell, Taryn's issue.
Cardan can have my babies.
Yeah, just for that, right? Like, just
and I
for
won't
being
murder him.
Yeah. We're not going to stab him.
Nah.
No, but genuinely, I think he's the only person who tells Taryn the truth about how she is. And I don't know that she has like an overarching like character resolution. Like, she doesn't get better really towards the end. Jude just kind of like evolves and gets better. And I think she's just like moved past Taryn. But she still just sucks.
Wow, sorry. I was just processing. Wow. I mean, those little blurbs that we see from, did you say it was The Lost Sisters? That's what it's called?
Yeah.
The Lost Sisters gives so much more perspective on how like brainwashed she is into her role as a woman.
Absolutely.
That's what keeps popping up to me. As much as she sucks, I feel like she has this belief that she is supposed to be someone who sits and lets everyone do whatever they want to her.
Yeah, and I think they both, and they say this in the books, that they are both trying to find their way in fairy, but in very different ways.
Yeah.
Taryn just absolutely does it in the most manipulative way possible. Even though you think that Jude is doing the same thing, you think that Jude's manipulative and cruel and awful, Taryn, I think, is the double of that.
I would totally agree.
I would say we were going to talk a little bit about Maddox, but I don't even think it's that important at this point.
Yeah.
Because their dad is just kind of sucking. Like, and it is not her dad. He's not really the dad. He's the guy who murdered their parents. And he just sucks. Like, he's classic, like, narcissist dad.
Yeah, he really doesn't have a growth point. He just kind of stinks throughout the whole thing.
Yeah. So a few other books are continuing the series. It's separate, but we definitely feel like, I don't know, I feel like I'm going to read them. Are you going to read them?
I think so. I liked it. I thought it was good YA. It wasn't cringy, but it also wasn't heavy fantasy.
Yeah. And honestly, like I said, the next books focus more on Oak, I think, where he's like a teenager.
And that's pretty fun. I do hope in this, though, that we see more of Jude and Cardan as a couple.
Yeah, I would really like that.
Because I'm into it.
So if you've read that second, like, group of books, please let us know what you thought and if it's worth our time. So we want to do it.
Yeah. Overall, though, the series I thought was great. One thing that I know a lot of people didn't love was world building. A lot of people felt like as a series, it didn't have enough of it. Me personally, I'm terrible with world building. You could tell me what the entire place looks like, and I'm going to say, scratch that. I want it to look like this. And then if magically there's wood floor instead of carpet in my mind, I just switch it to being like, oh, shoot, wrong carpet. Like, I don't like a lot of world building. So for me, this was the perfect amount of world building where if something needed to change, I would just make it up. But I also had a good idea of what we were doing.
True. And I don't think it was like a full high fantasy series either. So it was kind of just like, it was the perfect amount for a YA series, I would say. I think it was really nice.
Yeah, so I thought that was good. One thing I would have liked to see was maybe a little bit more emotion. I feel like sometimes, especially with Jude's behavior, it would be Jude was sad, and then it would just kind of move on. And I would have liked to see more depth of her emotions as well as everybody else's to maybe understand better where they were coming from and to get them as people rather than just kind of like characters, which sounds goofy, but I like to understand a character and get it and be more empathetic toward them. Sympathetic?
Yeah.
Empathetic?
Sympathetic.
Pathetics.
Pathetics. No, I do agree though. I think that the characters did feel a little bit like emotionally stunted.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell how much that was because of just like straight up trauma or if that was like even an on purpose decision by the author, but who knows?
Yeah, so those are kind of my overall thoughts.
Holly, if you're listening, was that on purpose?
But also, we love you.
Yeah, we actually really did like the series. You did great.
Yeah. And I actually was into Cardan's little tale.
Honestly, I was into him. I was like, okay, cool.
I liked it.
That was nice. Obviously, you know.
Yeah, but anyway, did you have some kind of closing overall thoughts?
No, I think I would really recommend it to anyone. I obviously don't think it was like a 5-star read for me, but it was one that I was like, you know what? I consistently enjoyed it. There weren't days that I like showed up and was like, oh, I really don't want to continue. I really was kind of just like, okay, great, let's keep going. Like, I definitely was enthralled in the story. And I think that overall, Holly Black did a great job.
Holly, you crushed it.
Crushed it, girl.
But thank you so much for joining us in this deep dive of our first YA series. Next week, we're going to be talking about another scientific theory. You're getting so much this season. And this one is pretty exciting. We call it the enemies to lovers pipeline. And also other hair color based theories.
Hair color is important in this next episode, so tune in.
And if you're a blonde boy, watch out.
Yeah.
But if you enjoyed today's episode, you're in luck. We post every Monday. And if you need your fix throughout the week, you can also follow us on Instagram and TikTok at @thebookyard_pod. And if you want to also subscribe to us on YouTube, you can follow us there at @thebookyardpod. See you guys.
Have a great week. Bye.